15 years old or something, and got a tour of the Naval Academy, and I just fell in love with it. And that's the only place I wanted to go to school. And I kind of just, from that moment on, set my sights on what do I need to do to get into the Naval Academy and to play golf at the Naval Academy and to graduate the Naval Academy and become a naval officer, all those kinds of things.
All right, welcome back to the Player Pursuits podcast. I'm your host, Alex Shattuck. Today we have a very special guest, another PGA Tour winner in Billy Hurley III. Welcome to the podcast, Billy.
Hey, thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was really exciting to have you on. Right now I'm based out of the DC area. You're from Northern Virginia, and I kind of want to talk about your history, kind of growing up in the area. Your journey, which is a very unique one, only service member to win on the PGA Tour, and how that happened and what you're up to now.
Yeah, thanks. Leesburg, Virginia, originally. Kind of my mom still lives in the house that I grew up in there in downtown Leesburg. So it's grew up playing baseball, golf, basketball, soccer. Kind of played everything that I could get my hands on, and gravitated towards baseball and golf. Turned out to be better at hitting the little golf ball than the bigger baseball, and that's kind of where we ultimately went down the path of working to play golf in college, and then went to the Naval Academy, played golf there, and that's where we started thinking, maybe I could play golf at an even higher level than this, fortunate, I should say, to make it to the PGA Tour and have a 7-year, seven playing seasons out there, and did the Navy along the way, kind of those 5 years out of school, and was a surface warfare officer, a couple of ships in the Navy, and wouldn't trade that time for the world. You said it was a unique path, and that certainly is a unique path to professional golf through a service academy and through the active duty ranks. But that was some of the best memories of my life, of leading sailors and making friends for life out of the Navy and all that kind of stuff. But that's the 30,000 foot view. There's a thread to pull along the way in all sorts of ways there, but I'll let you do that.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, what inspired you to end up at Navy, going to the academy? I mean, obviously a very good junior, and I believe Navy is in the Patriot League, right? Not a golf powerhouse.
No, not at all.
So what was the inspiration there?
Yeah, I was a good junior player. I wasn't a great junior player. I could have played for George Mason or Virginia Tech or maybe UVA kind of thing, but I was never going to play at Georgia, Florida, Oklahoma, any of those, Texas, in any of those schools, right? But I just ultimately fell in love with the Naval Academy, and certainly golf was a piece of that, in so much as if they didn't have a golf team, I might not have gone. I definitely wanted to play college golf, knew I was good enough to play college golf and Division I at a mid-level, not at a major level kind of thing. And then I just got a tour of the Naval Academy actually after my freshman year of high school, so I was 15 years old or something, and got a tour of the Naval Academy, and I just fell in love with it, and that's the only place I wanted to go to school. And I kind of just, from that moment on, set my sights on what do I need to do to get into the Naval Academy and to play golf at the Naval Academy and to graduate the Naval Academy and become a naval officer, all those kinds of things. What's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? And just charted that course and executed on it.
Yeah, so during that time, we have a lot of nerds that listen to this podcast. They know kind of normal college golf world pretty well. What does college golf look like at a service academy that you think might be a little different as far as the experience?
Well, it looks like a lot less practice than your average Division I athlete across any sport, really, not just golf. But, we didn't normally get to the golf course till 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. We weren't able to just take morning classes and be at the course at noon every day kind of thing. There were the days you could do that were the good days at the Naval Academy when you didn't have afternoon classes. But the academy academically is set up a little bit more like high school, I'll say, in that there's like 6 periods through the day, and different than high school in that you don't have class in every single one of those periods, but you have it in 75 or 80% of those periods, kind of thing, and so the athletic block, we'll say, of the day was 4 to 6 p.m. and that's kind of when varsity practices happened, and so from just a time standpoint, right, that's much different than most other Division I athletes. And there's NCAA rules around like practice times and that kind of stuff, but that's when the coach is present, right? That's how that's regulated, is just by an actual coaching time, not by actual time inputted. But we really only had the ability to do what the NCAA kind of allowed from a coaching time, because we just didn't have the time to do other stuff. On top of that, you're taking a lot more credits academically than most Division I athletes, right? I mean, the NCAA says you need 12 to be eligible, but the academy says the minimum is 15, and most years, most semesters, take an 18 or 21 kind of thing. So just a lot more demands on your time, so a lot less time to play and practice golf or any other sport for that matter.
Yeah, so having a very good college career, I think you won 7 times,
Right.
which is like a lot. Walker Cup member. Obviously a lot of success there. Probably implementing half the amount of time is what your peers were doing. What do you attribute to being able to do that? Is it a style of practice, just being extra dedicated during that time, practicing smart, or is there some other magical formula?
No, I think you hit it on the head. Is that practice smart, learning how to get a lot done in a little amount of time, and not wasting any time was really a big key of practice at the Naval Academy. I think another key is just having pretty good fundamentals. I've seen lots of players come through the Naval Academy, and those who kind of had a quirk, we'll call it, of some kind, like didn't do as well because you didn't have the time to hit all the balls required to make your timing work, so to speak. If you had a super strong grip or a super upright swing or a super whatever, the players who had more of a neutral setup, neutral swing, have had the ability to have a little bit more success, who didn't rely as much on timing and as much on a ton of practice to square the club face at the ball. So, but that practice time for me, was sacred. I wanted to be there. I wanted to work on it. It was a bit of my escape from quote unquote life in the military, especially freshman year, of kind of being a plebe at the Naval Academy, having to do all the extra stuff, and you get to get over to the golf course, you get to put on a golf shirt instead of a military uniform, and you get to practice golf and just kind of be in that space, be in that zone, so to speak, was really sacred to me. So I just did it as much as I could. I just got over there to the golf course as much as I could. I spent, my roommates will tell you, I spent most of my free time, most of my time in general, just how quickly can I get to the golf course every day to be able to practice. And so, yeah, that practice smart, and that is really the biggest thing you have to do with less time.
Well, I tell you what, as a golf instructor myself, I just want to clip exactly what exactly what you said, and like put it up on the wall somewhere, right? Like, be grateful for the opportunity that you get to work on your game, and practice smart. Have good fundamentals so that we have the largest possible margin of error, and we don't maybe have to time it up so much. I mean, that was just put perfectly. All right, so beyond college golf, you going to the academy have an obligation,
Sure.
and it's what you wanted to do, I'm sure, as well, but to spend time in the Navy. What did your service look like, and maybe where did golf fit into it?
Yeah, so for the golf part, I kind of break it down into 2 separate pieces of the service. So I served 5 years after school. I was a surface warfare officer, and so for about 2.5 of the years I was on ships, and 2.5 years I was not on ships. And so the time on ships, I did not play much golf, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of just, there's, something, a little bit of something about the ocean and a ship and a golf course not being close to one another. But even when we were in port, which happens, plenty. It's not always out to sea kind of thing. But even when we were in port, it's a full time plus kind of job. It's not 40 hours a week. I mean, it's a large commitment of time to do it well. And so on ships, I did not play that much. The 2.5 years that I was not on ships, I did get to play, quite a bit. I turned pro kind of in the middle of my service, a couple years out of school, and I was not on a ship, so I was able to practice. I was able to play. I was able to get a couple of sponsors exemptions and kind of play a couple of tournaments while I was active duty, and then I went back to a ship and didn't get to play very much at all. I played 5 competitive days in 2 years. The last 2 years of the Navy, I played 5 competitive days of golf. And I think those happened inside of like 6 weeks of one another kind of thing. So it was even a really small kind of window in which that was able to happen. So, it came back to, like we were talking about, those fundamentals, or getting, an hour of practice here, or getting 2 hours of practice there, or trying to keep my body in as good a shape as I could, even though that's not as good a shape as it needs to be for professional golf. All those types of things, just from a time perspective, right? And that's directly out of the Naval Academy, directly out of the Naval Service, is doing the most important thing now, right? Like and kind of time management and all of that really served me well down the road too, of playing professional golf, because there's not enough time in the day to do anything that we all want to do. So managing your time, doing the most important thing is a great skill to have, and that's definitely one of those Naval Academy and Navy skills that I took with me.
I think that's one of the things that just about pro golf, later on, that surprises people, is the amount of practice. Is you don't get to dedicate as much time to your game during the season when you're on the road as one would think. So I'm sure those skills are really valuable. When I've been on the road with players, especially ones that have media obligations, like, it's almost like the golf becomes second to the rest of the schedule.
It can be, yeah, and you can, and there's so many distractions as well, right? You can get pulled in so many different directions, so you have to be very disciplined with your time and with your practice. And you got to play practice rounds, you got to play a pro-am, you got to you got to figure out a new green surface week in and week out, new bunker sand week in and week out, all those different things that just take up a little bit of time. So the time really does go away pretty quickly between really Tuesday and Wednesday, and then you're playing a tournament, and that takes 10 hours a day just to play that round of golf, when you just talk about preparing and playing and stretching and just all the things that go into being ready to play, and then as soon as you're done playing, you're trying to get ready to play tomorrow. And so it is true that you'd think, as a professional golfer, you'd practice as much as you want and get everything done you wanted to get done, and it's just not true. There's always something where you're kind of wish you had another 30 minutes to do something else or whatever. But you also have to save your body, because you can't go hit 1,000 golf balls on Wednesday afternoon and have a chance at showing up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to compete in a golf tournament.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So when it kind of came time to give it the full proper run as a pro golfer, what did that journey to the top ranks look like for you?
Well, I came straight out of active duty, kind of got out of the Navy in the summer of 2009, and I had spent the last 5 months at sea. So I had played, I think I had played 1 round of golf in the last 5 months, and I got out of the Navy to play golf full time. So not exactly the on ramp that you're looking for, as far as
you didn't just play a U.S. Open or play a national championship or anything like that.
No. I just got off the ship in Singapore and flew home and started started trying to get back into golf. So it was, so I think that I just started practicing every day, and playing practicing every day, 6 days a week or whatever it was. And it was the first time in my life, I was 27 years old. It was the first time in my life where golf was the only thing in my life. Right. I mean, I was married and I had a couple of kids and stuff, but it was the first time that my job was golf. Like, even we go back to, talking about playing golf at Navy versus another Division I school, is most of those guys are playing golf full time. Especially at the big schools, golf or classes secondary to practice and tournaments and playing golf. But I'm 27 now, just got out of the Navy, and this is the first time that golf is the first thing in my life from a time standpoint, and so, I just kind of got working at it, just kind of put a plan together, got back together with my instructor that I had worked with previously, and kind of got the plan back together, trainer back together, just all those things, just kind of like putting the pieces of the puzzle back together and starting to work on what we needed to work on. And spent that summer of 2009 working on it. Knew I had to play some tournaments. I was going to go to Q school, later that fall, and knew that, first stage of Q school couldn't be my first tournament, back from back into professional golf. And so I, played a couple of mini tour events. I missed 3 cuts by combined 3 shots. And, it was kind of a discouraging time of, just missing cuts by a shot, even just on mini tours. But I knew I wasn't really quite ready to play at that time or compete at that time. But like I said, I knew I had to, just to be ready when I wanted to be ready for Q school. And, so didn't do great at Q school. Well, I guess I got to second stage, but didn't make it through second stage. And so, spent a year on the mini tours. This is 2010, so it's 14 years ago, and it was the Hooters tour and the e-golf tour, and
kind of the glory days of mini tour golf relative to now.
It was actually some of the peak days of mini tour golf. That is certainly true. I won one of the thing that springboarded me forward that year was I won one of kind of the Hooters tour had a couple of tournaments that they made like their majors, and they had injected a little more money into the purses, and I won one of those. And so that was kind of the springboard. Yeah. Yeah, it was getting a little frustrating. I had not quite played the golf that I wanted to play, and had not quite had the success that I felt like I should have had, and that my kind of college and amateur resume would say I should have. And obviously I pressed pause for 5 years, 3 to 5 years kind of in there, but that was kind of the springboard that was like okay, now we're off to the races, now we're going. So that year in 2010 I got to final stage, didn't play well at final stage, so I got to the Nationwide Tour, now the Korn Ferry Tour, got to the Nationwide Tour, and then played 2011 on the Nationwide Tour, finished 25th on the number. That was back in the days when it was 25 spots to the PGA Tour. I finished 25th and got the last spot up to the PGA Tour. And so 2012 was my rookie year on tour, and I played seven seasons out there.
Yeah, so, obviously PGA Tour winner. So, and you kept your card for a long time, which is harder than people think it is.
That's true.
what was your best season, or what did winning on the tour feel like?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly my best season was 2016 when I won. It was my highest, finish in the FedEx Cup and that kind of thing. But my probably most consistent season was 2014. A couple years prior to that, I had a good handful of top tens and a couple of chances to win that season in 2014 and didn't win. But that's actually what prepared me to win in 2016. 2014, played in the final group a couple times and, had some chances, but I was almost, I'll say, apathetic to the result, because I thought that was the best way to approach it, right? Of kind of like, I'm going to go try my best, and if the chips fall where they fall, then I'll win, and if not, that's okay. I still have wife and kids who love me, and yada yada yada,
Very
and
process oriented.
yeah, and but I also had so many chances at that I thought that they would keep coming. And then I played 2015 and kind of struggled in 2015 and didn't really have a chance to win in 2015. And so then the chance to win comes back around in 2016, and I approached it for that weekend, especially that Sunday, much differently. I had a new thought of like, you actually don't know how many more chances you're going to get to win. So you better win today. You need to go do it, as opposed to kind of, waiting for it. You need to go do it. And that doesn't change anything about how I hit golf shots or what I did that day necessarily, but it was just a little bit more of a mindset of taking it as opposed to letting it come to me. And like I said, I didn't hit more aggressive golf shots, or I didn't, try and make more 20 footers and risk rolling them 4 feet by or anything like that. But there was just this sense that day that you don't know how many more of these you're going to get. Like I said, in 2014, I thought I was going to get 3 to 5 a year, like I had for the next 5 years, right? And then 2015, I had 0. And so you kind of go, wait a second, like these are a precious commodity. They're not an abundant supply. And so when you get the chance, you got to take it and do it.
Yeah, I really like the way that you talk about that. Like, the change in mental approach doesn't mean that you have to play aggressively or take chances you wouldn't normally. It's more so just a change in the mindset and just kind of your approach to the day than anything else.
That's exactly right.
The game of golf. It's both challenging and rewarding, requiring focus, concentration, and the ability to tune out outside distractions. Peak performance is achieved through a synergy of body and mind. Shell Golf Apparel is designed with advanced textile technology that moves with you, with 4-way stretch and moisture-wicking properties that keep you cool and dry. Visit shell.shop today and get 40% off the entire golf collection using promo code PlayerPursuits. Now, back to the podcast with your host, Alex Shattuck.
Yeah, so, as your playing career kind of wound down, I know that you have your foundation now. I'd love to kind of hear you talk about, I got the mission statement here, but I'd rather hear it from you.
Sure, yeah. So we're, fortunate again, that the PGA Tour and being a professional golfer happened to provide us the opportunity to, create a foundation, right, and to create this platform. And so my wife and I kind of took a look at it. We knew we wanted to focus on military, obviously coming from the Naval Academy, coming from the Navy, but we wanted to take a look out there of what's not being done in that space, right? And there's so much need, and you can never fill a need entirely, but we wanted to fill like the greatest gap, not kind of be additive to a gap that was already fairly well filled, and it really. We landed on military families, and kind of just the simple synopsis is that the whole family unit is in the military, not just the service member, and the whole family unit is really serving our country by virtue of the sacrifices that they are making for their service member to do the things that he or she needs to do to be successful and for our country's military to be successful. So it really just stemmed out of our own experience in the fact that when I was at sea, my wife was a single mom, for the better part of 2 years, and for 5 months at a stretch, and 2 weeks at a stretch, and 3 months at a stretch, and all these times she's at home with a little 1-2-year-old, and I'm out at sea, and certainly my job wasn't easy, but I think it was easier than being at home with a 1-year-old by yourself, and so. That's what we kind of just landed on. So we want to serve, support, honor, and enhance the lives of military families. That's kind of what we're about, and we do that a couple of different ways. We do it through some secondary education scholarship for dependents. So, not for the service member, but for their dependents. Could be, spouse or child. We've had both win those scholarships. And then we do kind of family vacations. We'll call it respite vacations for the entire family to get away for a couple days and experience something that they might not experience otherwise. The other thing that playing on the PGA Tour does is it gives your kids a skewed sense of the world. I mean, the PGA Tour is fantasy land. You know, and it's, I mean, for golfers, it's a bit of a fantasy land, but for families, it's a greater fantasy land, you know, and they have opportunities at, you know, for my kids at 5, 7 years old to swim with dolphins and to backstage pass to SeaWorld and to, you know, have petting zoos with, you know, I'm blanking on the name, Jack Hanna in Columbus, you know, like the greatest, like, you know, veterinarian people on earth. And just all these experiences that like don't exist in the world simply because I can hit a little white ball better than many. And so we said we wanted to do that for military families. We wanted to, how can we give them an experience that they wouldn't otherwise have? And so that's what we've done with our vacation program as well.
Well, that's just so amazing. Just giving people that are really serving us an opportunity to experience things that they may not have access to, that they really, you know, should, and
yeah,
it's only
no,
benefit.
that's exactly right. So we you know, we're very fortunate to have a nice donor base who agrees with us and wants to, you know, support military families, and we've built a nice thing at the
So
BH3 Foundation.
where can listeners kind of help out, whether that's go to an event or donate money? Like where can they
Yeah,
find
sure.
that info?
So, absolutely, yeah, thanks. It's BillyHurley3.com. It's BillyHurley3.com. And
I'm sure we'll have that linked down for, you know, the YouTube and all that as well.
yeah, great, thanks. And then there's a foundation tab, you know, there, and you can learn more about the foundation. You can donate directly, you know, from there, kind of with a credit card. You know, we're a 501c3, so, you know, all donations are tax deductible. And then, you know, we have a tournament. Our primary fundraiser raises probably 80 to 85% of our, you know, yearly contributions, we'll say, is May 6th this year in Annapolis, Maryland. We host the Billy Hurley III and the Brave golf tournament. So the unique thing we do with the golf tournament is, instead of me asking 18 friends of mine on tour to kind of be the celebrity in the group and, you know, kind of come and play and support the cause, we actually have 18 active duty service members come play and be the celebrity in the group. And as a part of that, we, you know, it's an all expenses paid trip for the service member, and we invite their spouse to come along and experience Annapolis, Maryland, and have a nice weekend with our foundation and with our donors and sponsors. And so from a golf perspective, we're in a great place that we are actually full of our foursomes to play in the tournament, but we certainly have sponsorship opportunities for anybody looking for that kind of thing to throw their name or their company on. We'd welcome that.
That's awesome. So everybody definitely go check that out. And before I let you go, Billy, I want to ask a couple more questions about sort of where you think, you know, the PGA Tour is now. Obviously, it's a kind of controversial time as a player, as a fan. Everyone's got their take. So being in the kind of the most recent generation, what is kind of your take on what's going on?
Well, I don't know much more about what's going on than anybody listening to this can read in the newspaper, so to speak. But I can read between the lines of what's being said and what's not being said kind of a little bit better than many. And I mean, I think ultimately I've said two things. Well, I think ultimately the PGA Tour and LIV will come back together in some way. I think that the recent equity investment of the SSG, those guys at Fenway Sports and KKR and others, that's just step one in the kind of order of operations. It's not a one and done and this thing's all now done and over. And I think that's just step one. Later this summer would be my guess, is to win kind of the actual, what was termed the framework agreement with the PGA Tour, and PIF kind of gets resolved and kind of pulled back together. And there's a lot of moving pieces in there, and there's a lot of hurt feelings in there, and there's a lot of things that have to kind of get smoothed over and whatever. But it was not handled well by many, from both sides, all the way across the sphere of professional golf, in my opinion. And it probably could have not been as divisive as it became. It was going to be divisive. I mean, anytime there's a competitor in a market, it's going to be divisive. Nobody likes having customers taken from them, right? Or whatever. But I don't hold any hard feelings against anybody who's playing for LIV right now. I mean, we are all independent contractors, and we are all have the ability to make our own business decisions as independent business people. And those guys made the choice that this was what was best for them, and guys who stayed on the PGA Tour made the choice that that's what was best for them. So I think ultimately, if you look 3 years down the landscape, I think you end up with a global tour. Roy McIlroy started to talk about this. I mean, one of those deals where you kind of feel a little weird saying, I said this 8 years ago, but I said this 8 years ago. And, just having this top 50 or so, I think the signature events is like step one towards that kind of elite tour. The PGA Tour has always kind of had this ABC ranking of tours, even though they're all under the PGA Tour, name and FedEx Cup and all that stuff. There's, if you're a major winner, you're playing on a different tour than if you're a rookie on the PGA Tour, right? You are not playing the same golf tournaments, maybe once or twice a year. Do you see, when I was a rookie, I played 2 events Tiger played, or something like that, right? I mean, so it's just, it's not the same tour, and it never has been. Now we've just acknowledged that. We've said it out loud that we're kind of going to have 2 tours, this signature event tour and the full field tour. And I think that'll only grow in a sense and become more global. And I think that, you'll kind of have this PGA Tour and PGB Tour, so to speak, and guys will be trying to get into that, A-list schedule. I think it needs to be less people that are fully exempt into that schedule. Like right now you have 50 people fully exempt into the signature event schedule.
They've made it so hard. The circumstances have to be almost perfect for you to play your way in.
That's exactly right. I think there needs to be more kind of, shuffle up and shuffle down in that, which would probably pull it to, 30 exempt into that. And then, another, however you structure it, to have, 70, 72 players in the field, but a little bit more churn, to use the tour's word. They say there's going to be 18% churn. I challenge that assumption and look forward to which way the data falls out on that. But we'll see. But I think that the long-term thing, especially as you see, LIV get kind of pulled back under the same umbrella, will be 12 event schedule, plus the majors that kind of is global and, happens twice a month kind of thing, right? So there's like some sprinkling, almost like, well, just the best analogy is Premier League and Champions League soccer in Europe. And I think that's kind of where the PGA Tour will end up with a global schedule.
Yeah. And that won't be quite so U.S. centric anymore.
I think it still will be U.S. centric, right? I mean, 50% maybe, but not 95%, right? Yeah.
All right, so Anthony Kim is back. Are we gonna see you dust off the clubs too?
Yeah. Boy, Anthony Kim's a great player. We played the Walker Cup together in 2005, and he was far and away the most talented guy on that golf course when we were there for the Walker Cup back then. But It'll be exciting to watch him play. I don't know what my playing career going forward looks like. I had back surgery a couple of years ago, and just haven't gotten back to full speed, full stamina. Any more than about 3 days in a row hurts hurts enough to not be able to do it at a high level, kind of thing. And so, yeah, I'm hopeful that my leg, it's a sciatic nerve kind of regeneration issue. I'm hopeful my left leg will let me do it, and if it doesn't, we're starting to, no rush to what's next, but starting to think about what's next and put a couple of those pieces of the puzzle together.
Well, awesome. Billy, you were a great guest. I was so happy to have you on. Any kind of parting words? Anything else you want to plug quick?
I just got to say, beat Army. That's it. Thanks, Alex.
You got it. Thank you so much for coming on.